I always thought trust was simple. Emma used to say, just be honest and we'll be fine. I believed her. I worked late, came home tired, and handed her my paycheck like it was a promise. This is for us, I told her. She smiled back then. I know, she said, kissing my cheek. Those moments made me feel rich. People called me quiet. Emma once laughed and said, you're too soft for this world. I shrugged. Someone has to be steady, I said. I liked being the calm one. I liked believing love was built slowly, not shouted. When friends asked about my dreams, I said, I just want peace. Emma hated that answer. At dinner one night, she pushed her plate away. Do you ever want more? She asked. I blinked. More what? She sighed hard. More money, more status, more life. I replied, we have enough. She shook her head. Enough is for people who give up. Her words stung, but I swallowed it. I tried harder. I took extra shifts. I skipped weekends. When I came home, she barely looked up. You're late again, she said. I'm doing this for us, I answered. She scoffed. You always say that. I asked, what do you want from me? She said, ambition. I asked, isn't loyalty enough? She didn't answer. Some nights, I sat beside her on the couch. Are we okay? I asked. She kept scrolling. We're fine, she muttered. Fine felt cold. Fine felt like distance. I told myself marriage had seasons. I told myself patience mattered. I trust you, I said once. She replied, you shouldn't worry so much. The fight started small. Why don't we upgrade the car? She asked. I said, this one runs. She rolled her eyes. People judge us. I laughed softly. Let them. That laugh made her angry. You don't care how we look, she snapped. I said, I care about us. She said, that's not the same. One evening, she stood in the doorway and said, do you know how embarrassing it is? I asked, what is? She replied, being married to a man with no fire. My chest tightened. I have fire, I said quietly. I just don't burn everything. She stared like she didn't recognize me. I went to bed thinking love meant endurance. I thought staying was strength. I thought silence was safety. Emma turned off the light and said, you'll never change. I whispered, I don't want to lose you. She said nothing. I didn't know she was already gone. The next morning, she checked her phone and frowned. My sister bought a house, she said. I replied, good for her. Emma snapped, that could be us. I said, we're saving. She laughed. Saving for what? Retirement? I answered, for security. She said, security is boring. I said, it keeps us safe. She replied, I don't want safe. Later, she waved a magazine at me. Look at this life, she said. I asked, do you want me or the picture? She said, why can't I have both? I said, because pictures lie. She slammed the table. You always sound superior. I said, I'm just careful. She replied, careful men get left behind. That night, she said, promise me you'll change. I asked, change into who? She said, someone people respect. I said, I respect myself. She laughed softly. That's the problem. I felt small, but I nodded. I'll try, I said. She smiled, thin and tired. Try harder. I didn't see the plan forming behind her eyes. I remember her last sentence that week. I need a partner, she said. I answered, I am here. She looked past me. Not like this. I thought love could wait. I didn't know paperwork, lawyers, and silence were already on her calendar. At the time, I still believed trust could fix everything, even when cracks whispered warnings daily. I came home expecting silence. Instead, Emma said, sit down. Her voice was calm, almost bored. I asked, what's wrong? She pushed an envelope across the kitchen table and said, read it. I opened it slowly. What is this? I asked. She replied, divorce papers. My hands shook. Is this a joke? I said. Emma looked at her phone. I'm serious. I whispered, why? She finally met my eyes. I'm tired of being married to nothing. The words hit harder than a slap. I said. Nothing? She nodded. No drive, no future, just excuses. I tried to breathe. We can talk, I said. She shook her head. I've already talked enough. I asked, since when? She replied, since I realized love doesn't pay bills. I said, I pay everything. She laughed. Barely. I pointed at the papers. What do you want? Emma answered without hesitation. The house, the savings, the car, the investments. I stared at her. Everything? She said. I deserve it. I asked. And me? She shrugged. You'll survive. There was a knock. Emma said. That's my lawyer. A man walked in and extended his hand. David? He said. I didn't shake it. He smiled anyway. We've outlined a fair settlement. I said. Fair? David replied. Given your earning level, yes. I felt heat in my chest. You planned this, I said to Emma. She crossed her arms. Planning is what adults do. David added. If you cooperate, this can be quick. I asked. And if I don't? He said. It gets expensive. Emma watched me like I was already done. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask when she stopped loving me. Instead, I said, fine. Emma raised an eyebrow. Fine? I nodded. You can have it. David looked surprised. All of it? I said, all of it. My voice sounded hollow. Emma leaned back. See? That's the problem. You never fight. I said, I'm tired. She smirked. You always are. David slid a pen toward me. Sign here. My hand paused. Once I sign, it's over? He replied, legally, yes. I signed. Each stroke felt like cutting something out of my chest. Emma gathered the papers. That was easy, she said. I asked, was I ever hard to leave? She didn't answer. David cleared his throat. I'll file this today. Before he left, David said, you might want legal advice. I looked at him and said, why bother? He paused. Most people fight, I replied. Most people don't know when they're done. Emma smiled at that, like she'd won a game. Emma picked up her bag. I'll move out tomorrow, she said. I replied, you already left. She stopped and smiled. You're right. She walked to the door, then turned back. You'll never be more than this. I said nothing. After they left, I spoke to the empty room. So this is it, I said. No answer came. I sat down and whispered, I trusted you. The table stayed silent. I told myself I'd lost everything. I let them believe it too. Inside, something cracked, something quiet and dangerous, waiting patiently for the right moment to rise. I sat at my kitchen table and said, now I can look. My laptop hummed softly. I told myself, just numbers. My hand hovered over the mouse. You waited long enough, I said. I clicked. The screen loaded, and I laughed once. So this is freedom. My voice sounded strange, calm, and sharp. I leaned back and said, Dad, you were right. I remembered him saying, keep some doors closed, even to people you love. I had argued, why hide? He answered, because love can change. I scrolled and whispered. She never asked. I remembered Emma saying, money bores me. I smiled at that. Good. I opened another account and said, still here. Another click. Still growing. My chest tightened. You took what you saw, I muttered, not what mattered. My phone rang. Sophia, I said. She replied, I was waiting for you to call. I asked, everything still stable? She said, more than stable. I joked, don't scare me. She laughed. I won't. Your portfolio doubled. I closed my eyes. Say that again. She repeated, it doubled. I asked, after everything? She replied, especially after everything. I said, Emma never knew. Sophia paused. You wanted it that way. I answered, I needed it that way. She said, you're free now. I whispered, I know. Sophia asked, do you want to move anything? I replied, not yet. She said, you're very calm. I smiled. I'm very angry. She said, that's normal. I answered, I won't act on it. She replied, that's strength. After the call, I stood and said, I'm not broke. The room didn't celebrate. I liked that. I remembered Emma saying, you'll regret not fighting. I laughed. I fought years ago. I just didn't make noise. I opened a file and said, "You're still mine." Numbers stared back like loyal soldiers. I whispered, "Stay quiet." My phone buzzed again, a message from Emma. "The mortgage is higher than expected." I stared at it. Of course it is. I typed nothing. I imagined telling her, "You missed it." I imagined her face. I shook my head. No. I said it out loud. Not yet. Power felt better when it stayed silent. I sat down and said, "I'm not weak." Saying it made it true. Sophia texted, "Proud of you." I replied, "For waiting?" She answered, "For surviving." I thought of my father again. "Patience turns pain into leverage," he once said. I didn't understand then. I do now. I looked around the apartment and said, this was never the loss. I remembered Emma listing the house, the car, the savings. That was the surface. I laughed softly. She never learned to look deeper. I closed the laptop gently. I felt rage rise. She humiliated me. I felt relief follow. She freed me. Both lived in my chest. I said, "Control both." The word steadied me. I wasn't planning revenge. I was allowing gravity to work. I poured coffee and said, "You thought I was nothing." I took a sip. I let you. The bitterness tasted right. I looked at the door and imagined her walking back in. "Too late," I said calmly. That night, I lay on my bed and stared at the ceiling. "I'm dangerous now," I whispered. Not loud, not reckless. Dangerous because I knew the truth. Dangerous because I could wait. Chapter 3. I let the world think I was broke. I packed my clothes into 2 bags and said out loud, "This is enough." No one answered. The apartment was small, cheap, and quiet. I liked that. I dropped my keys on the counter and said, "You wanted peace. Here it is." Saying it made it real. Mark called that night. "I heard," he said. I replied, "News travels fast." He said, "Man, I'm sorry." I told him, "Don't be." He laughed once. "You always say that." I said, "It's still true." He paused. "Where are you staying?" I answered, "A place that fits me." He came over the next day and looked around. "This is small," he said carefully. I smiled. "So am I, apparently." He frowned. "Emma really took everything?" I nodded. "She took what she saw," Mark said. "That's brutal." I shrugged. "I'm breathing." He sat down and said, "You should have fought." I replied, "I chose quiet." He leaned forward. "Quiet doesn't pay bills." I looked at him. "It pays patience." He sighed. "You sound like your dad." I froze for a second. My father's voice filled my head. "Never show your whole hand," he used to say. I remembered asking him, "Why not?" He smiled and replied, "Because silence lasts longer than noise." I said it out loud now. He was right. Mark blinked. "About what?" I said. "About waiting." Mark asked, "So what's the plan?" I answered. "There is no plan." He laughed. "You're terrible at lying." I met his eyes. "I'm great at disappearing." He shook his head. "You're scaring me." I said, "Good. That means you're paying attention." He stood and said, "If you need money." I cut him off. "I don't." He said, "You don't have to be proud." I replied, "I'm not proud. I'm prepared." He studied me. "Prepared for what?" I smiled. "Time." After he left, I opened my laptop and stared at the screen. "Not yet," I whispered. Numbers sat quietly where no one else could see them. I closed it and said, "Patience." Emma never asked questions. She never wanted details. That was my mistake and my shield. A week later, Emma texted me. "Make sure the utilities are switched," she wrote. I replied, "They will be." She sent, "This place costs more than I thought." I typed, "Good luck," then erased it. I sent nothing. Silence felt better. Mark called again. "You sound calm," he said. I replied, "Calm is cheap." He said, "People are talking." I asked, "About what?" He answered, "About how she destroyed you." I smiled. "Let them." He said, "You don't care?" I said, "I care later." That night, I dreamed of my father. He sat across from me and said, "Endurance is invisible." I answered, "But it hurts." He replied, "Only at first." I woke up and said, I can handle first. At the grocery store, I ran into Emma. She looked at my cart and smirked. Still frugal, she said. I replied, old habits. She said, you'll need more than habits now. I nodded. Maybe. She walked away satisfied. Back home, I sat on the floor and said, she thinks I'm finished. The walls didn't argue. I whispered, good. I wasn't hiding from the world. I was letting it underestimate me. Waiting had always been my strength. Now it was my weapon. I sat at my kitchen table and said, now I can look. My laptop hummed softly. I told myself, just numbers. My hand hovered over the mouse. You waited long enough, I said. I clicked. The screen loaded, and I laughed once. So this is freedom. My voice sounded strange, calm, and sharp. I leaned back and said, Dad, you were right. I remembered him saying, keep some doors closed, even to people you love. I had argued, why hide? He answered, because love can change. I scrolled and whispered, she never asked. I remembered Emma saying, money bores me. I smiled at that. Good. I opened another account and said, still here? Another click. Still growing. My chest tightened. You took what you saw, I muttered, not what mattered. My phone rang. Sophia? I said. She replied, I was waiting for you to call. I asked, everything still stable? She said, more than stable. I joked, don't scare me. She laughed. I won't. Your portfolio doubled. I closed my eyes. Say that again. She repeated, it doubled. I asked, after everything? I said, Emma never knew. She replied, especially after everything. Sophia paused. You wanted it that way, I answered. I needed it that way. She said, you're free now. I whispered, I know. Sophia asked, do you want to move anything? I replied, not yet. She said, you're very calm. I smiled. I'm very angry. She said, that's normal. I answered, I won't act on it. She replied, that's strength. After the call, I stood and said, I'm not broke. The room didn't celebrate. I liked that. I remembered Emma saying, you'll regret not fighting. I laughed. I fought years ago. I just didn't make noise. I opened a file and said, you're still mine. Numbers stared back like loyal soldiers. I whispered, stay quiet. My phone buzzed again. A message from Emma. The mortgage is higher than expected. I stared at it. Of course it is. I typed nothing. I imagined telling her, you missed it. I imagined her face. I shook my head. No, I said it out loud. Not yet. Power felt better when it stayed silent. I sat down and said, I'm not weak. Saying it made it true. Sophia texted, proud of you. I replied, for waiting? She answered, for surviving. I thought of my father again. Patience turns pain into leverage, he once said. I didn't understand then. I do now. I looked around the apartment and said, this was never the loss. I remembered Emma listing the house, the car, the savings. That was the surface. I laughed softly. She never learned to look deeper. I closed the laptop gently. I felt rage rise. She humiliated me. I felt relief follow. She freed me. Both lived in my chest. I said, control both. The words steadied me. I wasn't planning revenge. I was allowing gravity to work. I poured coffee and said, you thought I was nothing. I took a sip. I let you. The bitterness tasted right. I looked at the door and imagined her walking back in. Too late, I said calmly. That night, I lay on my bed and stared at the ceiling. I'm dangerous now, I whispered. Not loud, not reckless. Dangerous because I knew the truth. Dangerous because I could wait. I started hearing things before I saw anything myself. Mark said, people are talking. I asked, about what? He said, about Emma. I replied, what about her? He hesitated. She's stressed, he said. I said, that's life. I walked into a coffee shop and heard my name. I turned and Lily waved. Hey, she said. I answered, hi. She smiled and said, I didn't know you came here. I replied, I like quiet. She leaned closer. Have you talked to Emma? I said, no. Lily frowned. She's having a rough time. I asked, why? She said, the house is expensive. I nodded. Big places cost more. Lily sighed. She thought it would be easy. I said, Nothing is. She lowered her voice. Her friends stopped coming around. I replied, people move on. She stirred her drink. She keeps comparing herself to others. I said, that's exhausting. Lily looked at me. You seem calm. I said, I practice. She laughed. You always did. I asked, is that all? Lily hesitated. She complains about money. I answered. She wanted more. Lily nodded. She still does. I paid and stood. Lily said, you don't feel bad? I paused. I feel careful. She watched me leave. Outside, I said, careful, keep scars closed. I remembered Emma laughing in that kitchen. You won't survive, she said. Later, Mark called. I whispered, I am. She's selling things, he said. I asked, why? He replied, cash flow. I said, that happens. Mark went quiet. You don't want to help? I said, no. He sighed. You loved her. I answered. I loved who she was. He asked, and now? I replied, now I remember who she became. I walked home and checked my phone. No messages. I said, good. I felt guilt rise. She trusted me. I argued with myself. Then I answered, she crushed me. That night, I sat alone. Do nothing, I told myself. I remembered Lily's voice. She's scared, she said. I replied to the room. So was I. The guilt softened. Anger stayed. I said, let it work. Karma didn't need help. It just needed time. Days passed. Mark said, she asked about you. I asked, what did you say? He answered, nothing. I smiled. Good. I ran into Lily again. She said, she cries a lot. I nodded. Tears dry. Lily asked, are you okay? I said, I am. Walking away, I felt heavy and light at once. This is karma, I whispered. I didn't push. I didn't pull. I watched. Emma wanted everything. Now everything wanted her. I kept walking. The cracks were spreading. I didn't smile. I didn't help. I waited. I told myself, stay quiet. Silence felt earned. Every rumor carried weight. She's drowning, Mark said. I replied, she chose deep water. One afternoon, Lily said, she misses you. I answered, she misses comfort. Lily frowned. That's harsh. I said, truth is sharp. I sat alone and remembered laughing with Emma. We can grow, she once said. I whispered, we did, just not together. The guilt tried again. Check on her, it said. I replied, no, boundaries mattered. Survival mattered. Mark asked, do you feel strong? I answered, I feel steady. He said, that's worse. I smiled. I heard another rumor. She might sell, Lily said. I nodded. Big houses echo. Lily studied me. You changed. I replied. I woke up. That night, I said, I didn't touch anything. Karma moved anyway. I lay back and breathed. This is enough. I knew the woman I loved was gone. The woman who hurt me remained. Watching was my justice. Waiting was my answer. I closed my eyes. Not my problem, I said. The cracks widened. I stayed still. Power grew quietly. I let it happen. I trusted time. Time trusted gravity. She was falling. I was not. That was enough for now. I kept walking, listening, waiting, breathing, learning, surviving, free. I stepped out of the building and heard my name. You? Emma said. I turned. Hi. Her eyes scanned the glass doors behind me. What are you doing here? I replied. Living. She laughed nervously. You work here? I said. Something like that. She crossed her arms. Since when? I answered. Since before you left. That silence hit her harder than shouting. A man walked up beside her and said, Everything okay? Emma said, Ryan, this is my ex. I nodded. Nice to meet you. Ryan looked at my watch, then my shoes. You know this place is expensive, he said. I smiled. So is ignorance. Emma snapped. Don't be rude, I said. I'm being honest. She stepped closer. You lied to me. I replied. You never asked. Ryan frowned. What's going on? Emma said. He was broke. I said. You assumed. She whispered. How? I answered, quietly. Her face tightened. All that time? I nodded. All that time. Ryan shifted. You said he had nothing, he told her. Emma said. I thought I cut in. You thought surface was depth. Emma's voice shook. So the apartment? I said. Temporary. She swallowed. The money? I replied. Mine. Ryan stepped back. Emma? She ignored him. You let me take everything, I said. You took what you wanted. She whispered. Why didn't you stop me? I said. I wanted to see who you were. That landed. Ryan scoffed. This is crazy. I looked at him. It's over your head. Emma reached for my arm. We should talk. I stepped away. We are, she said. Not here, I replied. Here is fine. People passed. She hated that. Ryan muttered, I'll wait in the car. Emma didn't stop him. When he left, she said, You're enjoying this. I shook my head. I'm accepting it, she said. You could have saved me. I answered, You didn't want saving. Her eyes filled. I made a mistake, I said. You made a choice, she whispered. I didn't know. I replied, That was your comfort. She looked at the building again. Is it yours? I said, Part of it. She laughed softly, broken. I traded everything, I answered. You traded trust. She asked, Do you hate me? I paused. I don't need to. That hurt her most. Emma wiped her face. Ryan doesn't know, I said. He doesn't need to. She asked, Can we start over? I replied, We already ended. She grabbed her bag. You're different, I said. I'm myself. She stepped back. I thought you were weak. I answered, I was quiet. She nodded slowly. That's worse. I smiled once. For you. Ryan honked. Emma flinched. I have to go, she said. I nodded. Drive safe. She looked at me like she wanted to say more. Nothing came. As she walked away, I said, Emma. She turned. I hope you find what you're looking for, she whispered. I think I lost it. I said, Some things don't come back. She left. I stood still. Power wasn't loud. It didn't chase. It waited. She finally saw me, and that knowledge followed her away, heavy and permanent. My phone rang at 1:12 a.m. I stared at the screen and said, Why now? I answered. Hello? Emma whispered. It's me. I said, I know. Her breath shook. I can't sleep, I replied. Neither could I once. She paused. Can we talk? I asked. About what? She said. About us. I leaned back. There is no us, her voice cracked. Please. I closed my eyes. Say what you called for. I'm sorry, she said. I stayed quiet. She tried again. I hurt you, I answered. Yes. She cried softly. I didn't mean to destroy you, I said. Intent doesn't erase damage. She whispered. I was scared. I replied. So was I. She said. You were always there. She said. I didn't know your worth. I replied. That was never my job to prove, I answered. Until you pushed me away. Silence stretched. She breathed. Can we meet? I hesitated. Public place, she said. Of course. We met the next afternoon. She sat down and said, Thank you for coming. Her hands shook. I said, I came to listen. I ruined everything, I replied. You changed everything. She wiped her eyes. I miss you, I said. You miss stability. She looked up. Is that all I saw? I nodded. It was enough for you then. She leaned forward. I was wrong, I answered. Yes. She flinched. Do you hate me? I shook my head. I don't carry you like that. She cried harder. I don't recognize myself, I said. Neither did I at the end. She whispered, I want another chance. I replied, I already gave you my life. She said, I do things differently. I answered, I believe you. Her eyes lit up. You do? I continued. But belief isn't permission. She covered her face. I lost you, I said. You let go first. She looked up. Is there nothing left? I thought carefully. There's understanding, she asked. And forgiveness? I said. Not today. She nodded slowly. I deserve that, I replied. This isn't punishment. She frowned. What is it? I said. Distance. She whispered. You're so calm. I answered. I had practice. she asked. Are you seeing someone? I shook my head. No. Hope flickered. I added, I'm seeing myself. She smiled sadly. That sounds like you, I replied. It took losing you to hear me. She stood. I'm glad you're okay, I said. I am. I'll always regret this. She hesitated. I answered. Regret can teach. She said, and you? I replied, I learned. As she walked away, she turned back. You were never nothing, I said. I know. She left quietly. I sat there and felt nothing collapse inside me. No anger, no longing, just space. I said to myself, I'm done reaching backward. The apology echoed, then faded. I didn't need it to heal. I had already moved on, carrying myself forward, finally whole. I told Mark, I'm done chasing ghosts. He asked, You sure? I said, I'm tired of letting the past speak. He nodded. That sounds like you again. I smiled. It finally does. Sophia called and said, Your name is circulating. I replied, I expected that. She asked, Any concerns? I said, No. She laughed. You're calm. I answered, I worked for this calm. Mark said, Emma knows. I replied, She knew enough. He said, You could crush her. I shook my head. I won't. He frowned. Why not? I answered, Because I don't need to. I sat alone and said, Revenge is loud. I remembered my father saying, Power whispers. I replied to the memory, I finally hear it. The room stayed quiet. That felt right. Sophia texted, Congratulations. I replied, On what? She answered, On choosing yourself. I stared at the words. That was the hardest part, I typed back. People started calling. Is it true? They asked. I said, Yes. They said, You were hiding. I replied, I was building. Some apologized. I accepted none of it personally. Mark asked, Do you feel victorious? I answered, I feel finished. He said, That's better. I nodded. It is. I passed Emma once on the street. She looked away. I didn't stop. I said inside, This is mercy, not for her, for me. Carrying anger felt heavy. I set it down. I spoke out loud at home. I wasn't perfect. I admitted it easily now. I stayed quiet too long. Owning that didn't hurt anymore. It freed something. Sophia said, You've grown. I replied, I had to. She said, What's next? I smiled. Living. She laughed. That's vague. I said, It's enough. Mark raised a glass and said, To survival. I corrected him. To choice. He clinked it anyway. You earned it. I thought about Emma's words, her anger, her regret. It stays with her, I said. I didn't need it anymore. Her mistakes were permanent. My future wasn't. I stood by the window and whispered, Thank you. To my father, to the silence, to the patience that saved me. I wasn't invisible anymore. I was intentional. Sophia asked, Any final moves? I replied, Just one. She waited. I said, Peace. She smiled through the phone. That's expensive. I answered, I can afford it. Mark asked, Do you forgive her? I paused. I release her. He nodded. Different thing. I agreed. A better thing. I looked at my reflection and said, You survived. Then I corrected myself. You chose. The man staring back looked steady. Emma didn't need punishment. Life handled that. I didn't need closure. I built it. Revenge faded. Purpose stayed. I turned off the light and said, I'm home. Not a place, a state of mind. I wasn't the man she left. I was the man she never understood. And I was done explaining myself.